he starts going off on me, and now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, like he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me. But then it got into telling me that he owns me. And
in those words?
Yes. I had to choose either a 1099 or this new policy.
Okay.
And when Jeff asked me the choice, we were Buffalo Wild Wings, and I said, I guess whichever one fits up his ass better, would you like to order lunch? Because whatever he has and whatever he's going through, I just think he was bullied at some point in his life, and he has become the bully, and he doesn't realize it.
We were told by Steven Crowder that Dave Landau will no longer be a permanent member of Louder with Crowder, but he was still a friend of the show and would occasionally make appearances. Unfortunately, after these latest comments from Dave, I don't think that's the case. Until something changes, I don't think we'll see Dave on Louder with Crowder ever again. His friendship with Steven is truly strained after he claimed that Steven was bossy, a hypocrite, and controlling. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about.
You're officially have left Louder with Crowder.
I did. I left a while ago. Yeah, a little while ago.
How did you find it? Let's talk about that. You want to talk about the end? You want to talk about the beginning? How do you want to talk about this situation?
The beginning was great for a while. It really was. It was a lot of hanging out, collaborating, putting out sketches, doing the things that I was hired for. It's definitely a grind, but that was part of it. The pot was sweetened, so to speak, is what I was offered. It was not this gigantic payday that everybody seemed to think. It was almost no bump, but
you didn't get $50 million.
No, I didn't get. I got about $1,000 extra a year, but it's hard to talk about money, but it was. But I knew that it would help on the road, and he wanted me to be there on more Fridays, and that started being a point of tension because I started making money on the road, and I did say I would be there on more Fridays, but every time I would show up, he wouldn't show up.
Okay,
and I just said, all right, well, I'm just going to work or go and see my son. And, he's in Detroit. And I said, as long as everything was working out, there was a possibility that they could move there.
As a fan of Louder with Crowder, I don't understand why Steven wanted Dave there on Fridays. There was no show on Friday, so Steven wouldn't be there. Dave wrote material for the show in his own time, so there was no reason for him to be there on Friday. They also didn't up his salary at all for doing so. They basically wanted him there for no reason. Dave decided to do stand-up or visit his kid on Fridays instead, which Steven had a huge problem with, and I don't really understand why, especially since the original contract terms had Dave be third chair Monday through Thursday and writing content for the show, which he did. He fulfilled his contract. But that's far from the only reason that Dave left the show. Apparently, Steven had a button that would shut up Dave Landau anytime he wanted. Check this out.
And then, it became a little weird because a light was put in where it was his rant button. And it was basically a Dave don't talk button.
Wait, so there's literally a light bulb? What color was the light bulb?
There was 4 lights in a row.
There were 3 lights.
I'm serious. And when it was hit, I wasn't supposed to talk. And they
said,
said,
was it like a regular colored light bulb, or was it like red?
It was like a yellow, a pretty bright yellow, like like yield.
So it's like off camera, but in your eyesight.
Yes, and
would he be the one pressing the button, or was there a producer pressing the button?
He would press it.
So like Mr. Burns, like he had a button under his desk or the table, and when it's Steven's turn to talk and Dave needs to shut the F up, he presses this button.
Yes. And I had to make sure that, he got the last thing. So even if I did have a funnier joke, I would just leave it out. It was important for the fans to not hear it. I always felt that my job as a comedian was to leave out the good one.
So there you hear, not only did Steven put in a light to get Dave to stop talking, but he also made sure to let him know that he was never allowed to have the last word or the last joke. That was reserved for strictly Steven. Dave also mentioned that a big problem he had with Steven specifically was that Steven would say one thing to his face and do a completely different thing behind his back. He would never be sincere or say what he meant. Roll the clip.
He wanted me to film a special.
Okay.
And
What kind of like a
I'm
special
sorry, he
episode?
didn't. I wanted to. I'm
You
sorry.
wanted to feel special. Okay. Yeah.
Stand-up comedy. So I had decided I was going to buy the equipment and film the special in Dallas. And we were selling out this theater. And he decided he wanted to get back into stand-up, which he had done when he was younger.
Okay.
And he had just been a host since then. So he said, hey, can I jump on and open it and I'll help promote it? And you can help me maybe write some of my stuff, get me back into it, and I'll help promote it. And I said, sure, of course. So we ended up selling out 2 shows, obviously, instead of just one, because he was helping promote it and he's a draw. So we went there and Matt McClowery was the opener. After that, I pulled Steven aside, and Steven couldn't do the Monday show. And I said, could Matt come in and co-host with me? He said, yeah. So now it's Super Bowl Sunday. The whole special went great. I paid everybody to film it except for one other person, Tim, who was there to film Steven's set. And I was very looking forward to the special coming out. And Monday or Sunday had rolled around, and I get a call from the showrunner that said Matt's not allowed to do the show.
How did they tell you? Like literally what they say?
Via text, it was just Matt's not allowed. Matt can. It's been like decided, something like that. Matt, I can find the text,
but the word is allowed. It's not like we don't have time or won't fit the schedule. The word was allowed.
Matt's
or
not allowed
permitted
to
or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, to do the show on Monday.
Was there any explanation at all?
No.
Okay.
So I said, that's odd. I already asked Steven, and he said it was okay.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, that's weird. I must have gotten mixed messages. So I just texted Steven and said, hey, I just talked to the showrunner. I just want to make sure it's still cool that Matt comes in. And he texted me something back along the lines of, what's done is done.
And this is where things start to get ugly. Dave decided that he didn't want to do Louder with Crowder anymore, and he's communicating that to Steven, and it doesn't go well. Steven says he owns Dave because he made him so much more popular and promoted his shows, and he basically freaks out at him over the phone, all because Dave decided that he no longer wants to be a part of the show.
I don't want to go greatly into the conversation between us, but it was, he's like, do you still want to be on Louder with Crowder? And I said, not at the moment. And he starts going off on me, and now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me.
Okay, so literally raising his voice, not just being stern, like to the point where it's audible.
It's audible, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's started stern, but then it got into telling me that he owns me, and
in those words.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He owns me, and it was venomous, and I don't know what he was going through at that point, and I just was like, dude, it was all this projection coming at me. I understand that there's going to be a touch of narcissism to anybody who's sort of in that field. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
But
ego and hubris, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was so over the top that I was trying not to laugh. Why swing your dick around when it's not necessary?
Okay.
So in that, he then, this very oddly telling thing, he's like, this is why you don't have any friends. And I was like, what are you, like,
wait, you said that?
Yeah, because I was kind of giggling.
Oh, like, I'm sure seriously enough because he was, from your perspective, being so over the top.
Yes, and I'm sure. I'm sure the phone call was recorded, so we could always hear it. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm just saying that he legitimately records his phone calls.
Dave should ask the Daily Wire about their experience with Steven Crowder and recorded phone calls. Speaking of the Daily Wire, in the contract that they offered Steven Crowder, if he missed a day of work, he wouldn't get paid for that day unless he made up for it with another show. Well, for some reason, Steven was pissed about that. Even though he has the opportunity to make it up, he doesn't think he should lose any pay for not having a show. But that's kinda weird coming from a guy that does the same thing to his own employees, only worse.
His company will enforce a strict 5-minute tardy policy. Contractor agrees that if he arrives to work more than 5 minutes late, he's in breach of Section 1, must leave company premises, and will not be compensated for the day the breach occurred. Contractor's breach of Section, blah, 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 and you can't seek reimbursement for the days the breach occurred.
Yeah, and at that point, I had already had my, contract terminated. I could have said the truth, but I never.
Was it terminated or did it resolve? Was it like had a fixed date?
No, it never had a fixed date. It was just they had said that that was done, and
You
I
were
had to.
informed either verbally or in writing that your contract is
Yes,
hereby done. Okay.
yes, and it was I had to choose either a 1099 or this new policy.
Okay.
And when Jeff asked me the choice, we were Buffalo Wild Wings, and I said, I guess whichever one fits up his ass better. Would you like to order lunch? Because I was
You
pretty fucking
you
pissed.
said that?
Yep. The and that's the part that I don't think he ever grasped was I was very, and I'm still very forgiving of him because whatever he has and whatever he's going through, I just think he was bullied at some point in his life, and he has become the bully, and he doesn't realize it. And that's what sucks is he's got a lot of yes men around him, and I really do love his staff and I love working with them, but I think that they are kind of just a little bit intimidated at this point to keep their own job. I know I was, so I don't blame him, but it's just there's just something there that I just don't grasp because there is part of him that I know is good. I've met that person. But then he does stuff that's behind your back that's like this, and you're like, why are you doing this for power? And it's and it's just not worth it to me. And at this point in my life, I have hit rock bottom enough and I have been left with nothing enough that I'm just gonna go, all right, well, that's enough.
Dave would be sent home without pay if he was more than 5 minutes late, and he'd have no chance at getting that money back. Meanwhile, Steven received an offer sheet that would pay him millions of dollars and said the only way he wouldn't get paid is if he had no show altogether. Basically, if he worked, he got paid. Sounds pretty fair to me. Either way, Steven had the opportunity to negotiate that contract and get more money for less work, but he decided not to. Instead, he went publicly and bashed the Daily Wire while also recording their phone call. As a huge fan of Louder with Crowder, Steven has become his own worst enemy. He's cut out his allies and his friends. He's a control freak that has to have everything his way, and he's unwilling to negotiate or compromise with anybody. He sees his own friends as the enemies or the villains every time they have a disagreement. He's unwilling to be civil and just talk to people about his issues. I don't know what the guy's going through, but hopefully he gets through it, because he's hurting his own show right now. Dave became a big part of Louder with Crowder, and the show isn't the same since he left. Steven was unable to get control of his own ego by saying things like, I own you, and you're not a real friend, you don't have any friends. Steven insulted and degraded Dave all because of a choice he made. He didn't want to work with Steven anymore because of the way he was handling things. It was mainly the unnecessary stipulations to his contract and the fact that Steven made changes behind Dave's back, or he would just flat out lie or change his mind about something he told Dave. Steven also rubbed his success in Dave's face. Anytime Dave did well on a comedy tour, Steven made sure to remind him that it was because he's a member of Louder with Crowder and the fact that he works for Steven. Dave even said he didn't value the extra success and money he was making because he didn't feel like he deserved it from the way Steven was belittling him at every turn. But that's all I have for this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Dave Landau leaving Louder with Crowder and his response here. And leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more content just like this, and I'll see you in the next one.